channel, it's Yasmin. I have finally upgraded to the yoga ball to sit on. Oh my goodness. It is so much more comfortable to sit on this ball than on like a seat or something. Like, it has got to that point in my pregnancy. I am 18 weeks and 1 day today. Hooray! Yay! I guess maybe every expectant mother feels this way, but I think that expectant mothers who are high risk feel more so. Every time you reach a new week, it's like, oh my God, like a week closer to getting to a safe period. Not like initially it would be the first trimester, right? Because first trimester, you think, oh, you know, first trimester. Then, like for me, I found out I had the cervical issue, which is, this video is about my cervix, my incompetent cervix, which we discovered at 12 weeks. So just after I found out that, you know, my child is chromosomally normal and everything. So it's been stressful. Like, it has been a stressful second trimester. Like, when I thought that everything would be okay after the first trimester, no. I actually got lumbered with another issue. And this issue is going to be with me the entire pregnancy. So it's something that I'm learning to deal with emotionally, mentally, physically, everything. Like, everything kind of like changed. So I'm dealing with it. So just after 12 weeks, actually I was on 12 weeks, I lost a little piece of mucus. Like, it was a thick yellow piece of mucus, and this was nothing that I've ever experienced before in my life. I quickly did like a Dr. Google, like literally the worst thing ever to do was a Dr. Google, and I was seeing my obstetrician the next day anyway. So I was concerned that it might be the cervical plug, like a piece of, it was only a tiny bit. So when I told him, he went, ah, and he got me to do 2 ultrasounds. He did the cervical assessment ultrasound. One was external and the other was internal, right? I know I'm not into giving anyone unsolicited pregnancy advice, because as soon as you tell people you're pregnant, you get lumbered with all this, like, a lot of it is useless, pointless stuff that you would already know advice. My one piece of advice I could give any of you would be, at 12 weeks, after you know that your baby is like normal and you've decided, you know, whatever, you know, the first trimester's coming to that, ask for a cervical assessment scan and assess your cervix and make sure that it's a transvaginal internal ultrasound. The reason being is that on the outside, my cervix looked 6 centimeters and closed. When they did the internal ultrasound, it was 3.6 centimeters and closed, but still it had funneling at the top, which is not a good sign. Also, it should be at least 4 millimeters, so it was slightly under but not crucial. So my very pragmatic obstetrician booked me in for a cervical cerclage 2 days later. No, sorry, 3. It was on the Monday, I did the ultrasound late. On the Tuesday, I got a message saying you're booked in for emergency surgery on the Thursday. So I had the surgery done. I had it done with a spinal, so an epidural, not a general anesthetic, and that was upon my request. And look, I'm pretty high pain threshold. It didn't hurt at all. I would prefer it that way, because if I do a GA, like, I need like hardcore painkillers, because you're shutting off your central nervous system, right? So as soon as that GA has worn off, your nervous system suddenly wakes up and is like, bang, you're in pain. Whereas an epidural or a local anesthetic wears off gradually. So honestly, like, you need something very light for pain relief, if you need anything at all. Like, it's very, very tolerable. So it was honestly probably like so stressful. Like, I was in so much angst, and oh my gosh, like oh my gosh, like so stressed. Not only because of the cervix, but because I'm having surgery when I'm pregnant. So after the surgery, I was given this medication to take for 72 hours after, and it's a blood pressure medication, which obviously made me dizzy because I have a low blood pressure anyway, but it's to prevent a miscarriage. You gotta take it for 7 days. Apparently some obstetricians don't give it to you. Me, I took it, and I would recommend you take it, because I think you better just take it than not. It doesn't do anything to the baby or anything, it just prevents a miscarriage for 72 hours after that surgery, because you're disrupting everything that goes on in there. I was in hospital overnight, and from then on everything was fine until a week or 2 later, and I ended up in emergency again because I had a tiny bit of spotting, like a little tiny little bit, and a piece of skin came out. Now, after this surgery for the stitch, I was given a hardcore antibiotic for infection, so to prevent an infection. This particular antibiotic, I've had it before when I've had surgeries, and I get thrush from it, so a candida yeast infection. My obstetrician then got me to come in and have a scan. He said he scanned the outside and said, you're fine, it must be just candida. Like you've got irritation in your vagina from the pessaries, progesterone pessaries, and the antibiotics. So he said, it's fine. He said, your cervix is fine, it's closed. But in my mind, I was thinking, you can't tell on the outside what's going on the inside, because I know from that 12-week scan what's going on. It can only be really visualized on the internal ultrasound. So that was that. But I was relieved to hear him say, don't worry, it's fine, whatever. A week later, Christmas Eve, I ended up in emergency again, you guys, like again. I lost a big piece of mucus. Like it was the same, exactly the same mucus that I lost at 12 weeks, but it was bigger. I ended up back in emergency department. Now, when I go to emergency department, it is not my doctors that are there. It is like doctors that don't know me. It's just who you're seeing. You basically just want to get checked out and told like what's going on. To my unluckiness, I got on this particular day a doctor who was completely dismissive on this particular day, and it didn't really assist my anxiousness in any kind of way. Although my obstetrician was also making me annoyed because he was telling me I still have candida, and that is candida when it is clearly not candida, right? I know, I've had candida many times. I know what it is. I know my vagina, I've lived with my vagina my entire life, and I know what candida is. That was not candida. So unfortunately, they were like, oh, we have to give you a speculum. And I was like, I'm not having a speculum. Anyway, in the end, I let them do a speculum. They're like, we can see the stitch. They did a swab. The next week, I went back to my GP, swab results, no candida. It was fine, just regular vaginal flora, whatever. Well, what that doctor should have done, or my obstetrician should have done, was then order me an internal ultrasound, so internal one, but they did not. The doctor said, you need to go back to your obstetrician, and your obstetrician needs to take care of this. So anyway, my obstetrician, then the next day, coincidentally, I was seeing him the next day as well, or like the next week. He was like, no, it's fine, don't worry, it's just regular, normal, like pregnancy discharge, nothing to be concerned about, blah, 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 blah. In my mind, I'm still like, this was not normal. I've never had this discharge before. It was thick, yellow mucus. Like, I know what a mucus plug is, right? Okay, so come New Year's Eve. New Year's Eve, I did my pregnancy Pilates and everything like that, and I started to get what I thought was round ligament pain, like which is a pain in there, like ligaments that are attached to the side of the uterus and they go down to your hip and they stretch throughout your pregnancy, right? But sometimes you can get what's called round ligament pain, which means like they're just having a little bit of pain. Usually just lie down and it eases off. I thought that I had some round ligament pain after I've been doing my Pilates. It was not round ligament pain. I ended up in emergency twice. It was like the most horrific pain of my entire life. It ended up being kidney stones after 4 nights in hospital because it just so happened it was New Year's Eve when it happened, and like the sonographers were not there on the Friday because Friday, New Year's Day in Australia is a public holiday, and then it was the weekend, the Saturday, Sunday. So I had to wait in until the Monday to get the ultrasound of my renal tract. So it was actually kidney stones. The worst pain in the entire world. Apparently it's worse than childbirth. I needed like hardcore painkillers to make it go away. But in saying this, thank God that I got these kidney stones. I've never had kidney stones in my life, so I had no idea what this pain was that I was experiencing. It was on the left side, so I knew it wasn't appendicitis because appendicitis is on the right. But I was like, oh my gosh, like what the hell is this? It felt like childbirth, but I knew it wasn't childbirth because childbirth would obviously be here. I'd be having bleeding, and it wasn't like that. As much pain and as much inconvenience as this caused me, thank goodness that this happened. So because I was pregnant, I was admitted under obstetrics and gynecology into hospital. The next day on the Friday, they said, we need to check your baby and everything, and they knew that I had the stitch put in because I told them. So they did the cervical assessment as well as checked my baby. So they checked on the outside too. Cervix looks fine, closed, long. Did the internal. Oh my gosh, I was like crying as soon as they came back and told me. They said, your cervix is short. Your cervix is 2.6 centimeters. And I literally just burst into tears. I was burst into tears like that night, the next day. It was awful. Like, so since the stitch had been put in, and since also been using a high dose of progesterone pessaries, is because they either treat you with progesterone pessaries or the stitch, or both, right? So despite the fact that I'd had this stitch put in, despite the fact that I'm on a really high dose of progesterone, my cervix had shortened another 1 centimeter. And 2.6 centimeters or 2.5 centimeters is like the borderline cutoff for being too low, right? So ideally it should have been, in my cervix should be 4 centimeters. So obviously I'm just like so angry at my obstetrician, because my obstetrician, one, he was refusing to request from me internal ultrasounds to assess my cervix after the stitch because of a risk of infection. Had like the doctors prior, when I ended up in ED, got me an internal ultrasound, I would have known earlier that it was still shortening, right? So I really feel like, and I don't know if you're religious, I'm not overly religious, but I do believe in God, and I do believe in signs, and you are sent signs all the time, like all the time for everything. And these kidney stones, actually there were 2 kidney stones, signs from God that you need to get your ass into hospital and you need to stay there, and you're gonna have this done, right? Like, it had to happen. So anyway, I'm like furious, I'm like, rah. I'm so angry, I'm crying, and I'm just like, then obviously in my mind I'm like, I need to change obstetrician. I can't have this. I can't have an obstetrician who is a professor, by the way, but who is dismissive of this issue. So I stayed into the hospital. I was so blessed and fortunate as well to get into an obstetrician of my choice who came highly recommended to me by my former gynecologist. He said, if you want to see someone who takes appointments out of that hospital, you need to see this one. Anyway, I got booked in for that 2 days time. So I have another internal ultrasound booked for next Thursday. Next Thursday will be 2 weeks since the one I did like last week to check that it was 2.6 centimeters. So I'm praying that it hasn't shrunk anymore, because it has shrunk 1 centimeter in 4 weeks, which is a lot, like it's a significant reduction. Within this time, I have some more restrictions imposed on me. So whilst I was given pregnancy Pilates clearance, 2 weeks after the initial stitch was put in, I'm now no longer allowed to do pregnancy Pilates for now. We have to wait and see what my cervix is doing before I can do it. I'm still, thank God, allowed to go for walks. So, you know, walks is so good for me. I'm a very active and physical person, as you know. This is even why I started this channel, is because, you know, I'm a certified personal trainer. Working out, I was a swimmer at a state level when I was younger. And just being active is just part of my whole, like, it's breathing to me, it's air. So for me to be able to walk still and not be on bed rest is like, oh my God, thank God for now I still am capable. I had done a whole bunch of nesting things, so I had got a whole bunch of baby things. So now I was like, oh my gosh, could I like have shortened my cervix, because I was like, you know, moving around stuff or whatever. And I think, you know, it's done now, nothing bad happened, but for now I have to be very careful. These are the rules that are being imposed on me. Still have to stay on my progesterone pessaries. Currently I'm on 800 milligrams of progesterone per day, which is a lot. The usual dose, depending on what brand you're using, is 400 to 600 per day. I was even at one point on 1000 milligrams a day from 12 weeks until the cerclage, the cervical stitch, was put in. So that's a lot of progesterone pessaries, and I'm going to be on that amount until the end of, you know, until I'm due actually of that high dose of progesterone. And even when I did my blood tests within the first trimester, my progesterone levels were naturally high. So I was producing a high level of progesterone anyway, but I need even more than that, right? Because that helps the cervix stay long and strong. No sex. Well, I'm single, right? So I'm not even having sex anyway. But okay, even if I had like a partner, I can't have sex with my partner, so definitely no sex. I don't even know about swimming, right? Maybe in the ocean I could go in for a second, perhaps, maybe. I don't even ask, I don't even want to know, but I guess that swimming will be completely out in a pool because of the chlorinated water, and especially like the stitching, I have a very high risk of infections. And in actual fact, my former obstetrician who did the initial stitch, he told me no swimming pools for you, like no swimming pools. So that's another restriction that I have because of the risk of infections. no, if I had other children, I'm not allowed to pick up my children. Like if I go get groceries, I can literally just get little amounts of groceries. I can't, no heavy lifting whatsoever. I actually got this huge drink bottle because I need to drink so much water, especially because I have kidney stones and I usually drink like 3 to 4 liters of water a day. And so now I'm like, I need a smaller water bottle because this is 1.1 liters of water. So it's 1.1 kilos in this stainless steel water bottle. So that's like way too heavy than what I should be lifting. So I'm really super anxious, I'm really super scared. How I think this happened was I've done a previous video before about how I was diagnosed with SYN3 cervical dysplasia before, like a long time ago. And I had the cervical laser done to my cervix. I am of 100% belief that this laser done on my cervix is the root cause of why I have a weakened cervix now. Like my cervix was long to begin with and now it's like shrinking, like it's not holding up to the weight of the baby and the weight of the amniotic fluid and the weight of everything there. It's really, really stressful, you guys. And honestly, like if I could go back in time and turn myself back to when I was 15-year-old, little whatever, I would have been definitely more cautious than what I was. Like I was such a bad girl, right? Like I wasn't getting a period, so I didn't really care about wearing condoms because I knew I wasn't gonna get pregnant because I never had a period, right? So could I go back in time and turn back the clock to when I was 15 and got like HPV that turned into like precancerous cells by the time I was 20 and needed like this cervical laser done on my cervix because the precancerous cells turned into SYN3? Oh my gosh, I would, because had I known and then like delayed down the track, it's gonna weaken my cervix the way that it has, you know, oh my gosh, like I so would. Anyway, it's done now. It is now. I'm in the best care possible, but however, I am on high alert that especially next week's scan, I might need to have this stitch taken out and another one put in because there are different kinds of methods of putting a stitch in. And there's different ways that they do it. One is they go in through your belly button, another one is like a McDonald, and the other one is a different kind of one. I think I have the middle one, but the other one is like, and there's a risk of if they keep on doing it, that you can like tear, the amniotic sac can become ruptured. Oh my gosh, I'm like really scared, you know, like ideally I would like things to just stay the way that they are without having to have another surgery. The other alternative is that they might put me onto permanent bed rest, which I just have this gut feeling that if my cervix continues to misbehave, that I will end up on bed rest in about a month's time, 6 weeks time. And that means that I will be lying down. I can literally only get up to go to the toilet and get food or eat or something like that. I have to literally be lying down, and which is going to kill me because 1, I have to work, 2, I have to do things like I have to do things for myself, right? Like, so that's, but you know, the reality is that if that's what I need to do, then that's what I need to do. And to truth be told, that if that happens to me, I'm probably better off to do it in hospital because I know that I'm not going to get up. Like I know that I'm only going to get up to go to the toilet, and I know that I'm going to have food brought for me, my meals brought for me. If I need like a physiotherapist because I have to do some form of physical activity in bed because bed rest is not ideal for anybody, like for anybody under any circumstances, I'll have one on hand. So I'm kind of like on standby as well, and I'm hoping that it won't get to that, but I just have this overwhelming, like you've seen, my belly is big, like I'm quite big considering that I'm 18 weeks, as I have like a anteroverted uterus, so which means my uterus pops out, like it tilts outwards, so which I'm not surprised that I'm showing quite a lot already. You know, I'm quite big compared to other girls that I know who are, you know, 18 weeks. I'm bigger than one of my girlfriends who's in her 20 weeks and stuff. So I know that I'm going to get a lot bigger, and I'm just on standby for bed rest, really. Standby for another surgery for my cervix, standby for bed rest. You know, I've just got to do what I've got to do, and I go through days, like every single day, I think I start to get teary because like it's so freaking hard, and not because like I wouldn't have another surgery or I wouldn't go onto bed rest, but because it's like scary because, you know, when it's harder to fall pregnant yourself as it is, because like for me, I have autoimmune issues, so my body Look, it's harder. It was harder for me to fall pregnant. Like my whole life, it was harder for me to fall pregnant because of my autoimmune issues. So by the time I finally fell pregnant, well, I fell pregnant and I had an early miscarriage, like a chemical pregnancy in May. And then it's like each milestone that I get to. So I get to 12 weeks and I don't tell anyone until like 12 weeks. And then, you know, oh, it's just like heartbreaking. It's really, really heartbreaking to know that you've got this healthy baby growing inside of you and that your body is not, your cervix or is not holding up to the weight of the baby. So it's not like I don't love being pregnancy, it's just I've got like this extra burden of worry that I have to worry about. So I'm kind of just hanging in there, and I feel like once I get to 27 weeks, because a 27-week-old fetus is very viable, you know, it'll spend a lot of time in the neonatal ICU, in the incubator, and this is the reality, like it will, but modern science, everything will be okay. And I'm just kind of counting down the weeks until I get to 27 weeks, honestly. A lot of regular monitoring by my obstetrician and gynecologist, my immunologist, my endocrinologist, like it's just how it is, right? And it's not, and if you have this, it's not your fault. It's not your fault that if you are a high-risk pregnancy. Don't let anyone try to tell you or try to say to you, or, you know, there's anything that you have done differently in your life or whatever that, you know, okay, look, it could have been because I got HPV when I was 15 and needed the cervical laser. It could have been, but it might not have been, because I know people, like I've got a girlfriend who had to have that done as well. And she had 2 very low risk pregnancies. Like she had midwives care for her and she could have pretty much delivered at home if she wanted to with midwives. That's how low risk. So it's not necessarily the fact that I did that. I'm just making myself feel better that could have been the reason why. But anyway, it is heartbreaking and it's scary. But if it is you and it's happening to you, don't feel guilty that did something, because I was feeling guilty for a long time and I still do get the guilt about it. Like I feel like, why is my body holding up to, you know, supporting my perfect baby when it's like my cervix? Why is my cervix just not doing this? You've attended more obstetrician appointments and you've done more scans and you've taken more medications and you've been through surgery and you've been through all of this, that it makes you appreciate your baby. So more grateful for every week that goes past. I'm like so more grateful for being pregnant. I'm like more eternally grateful for the care that I'm given by the medical team that's all behind me. I'm like more grateful for everything. Like honestly, I think that it really does make you really appreciate the miracle of like what this, you know, this creation that we like grow inside of us. It really, really is, where, you know, a lot of people take it for granted because they don't have anything else to really worry about. You know, it's kind of, they don't really see that, you know, I don't know, it's just how I'm kind of looking at it. So don't blame yourself if it happens to you. It's just something that happens and it's really, really common. Like I didn't realize how common this cervical issue really is, but it is so freaking common. The thing is, I've decided that in my next video, I'm going to tell you what I'm having. So a little Bubsy is like with the gender is, I think that it's time. I wasn't going to wait until the 3rd trimester. I'm having a gender reveal party. I'm waiting for the goodies to arrive. Obviously the pretty gender reveal stuff that I'm going to do. You know, some people have a cake, some people do balloons, some people do like all kinds of little things. So I've decided what I'm getting. I have ordered it. So it's going to arrive, and then next week I'm going to do that for you. I'm going to tell you what little Bubsy is. It's a little boy, little girl. And I have also noticed that I have a little outie belly button. So it's like almost an outie, and I have a mole that I never knew existed inside my belly button. There you go. So if you really like to follow my story about what's going to happen next or whatever, please remember to give me the thumbs up if you like this video, the subscribe and the bell notifications, and we'll see you next time.